Om Agyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 9. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Шримад Бхагаватам, молитва царицы Кунти, песня 1, глава 8, текст 9.
Перевод. Утта рассказала: «О Господь богов, о Господь вселенной, Ты величайший из мистиков, умоляю Тебя, защити меня, ибо в этом мире двойственности никто, кроме Тебя, не сможет вырвать меня из когтей смерти». Комментарий. Этот материальный мир — мир двойственности, в отличие от духовного мира, в котором царит единство. Он состоит из материи и духа, абсолютный же мир всецело духовен, там нет и тени материальных качеств. В мире двойственности каждый пытается стать его мнимым хозяином, а в абсолютном мире Господь — абсолютный господин, все же остальные его абсолютные слуги. В мире двойственности все завидуют друг другу, и из-за разделения на материю и дух здесь неизбежна смерть. Господь — единственное прибежище, которое вселяет бесстрашие в предавшуюся душу. Не предавшись лотосным стопам Господа, в материальном мире невозможно вырваться из когтей безжалостной смерти.
Uttara is a great, pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. She is not afraid of death. She is performing a very important service by becoming the mother of another great devotee, namely Parikshit Maharaj, who is in her womb and is under attack from what? Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. So, Brahma Astra means the weapon of Lord Brahma, who is himself a great yogi. Or it can mean the weapon that's powered by mantra. It's very powerful. So it's a mystic weapon. It can only be counteracted by someone who has greater mysticism. So Uttara is praying to the greatest mystic, Krishna, who is not only the greatest mystic, but he is known to be the protector of his devotees. And Uttara is a devotee. Parikshit is a devotee. Parikshit has very important service to perform in this world. Uttara is praying that the child in the womb, Parikshit, be protected. She knows that Krishna can do so. And she doesn't think that anyone else can do so. Even the Pandavas, they are present, but she doesn't. Arjuna is present, but she doesn't think that even Arjuna is competent to protect. Krishna can protect. Of course, Arjuna can protect. But if he can protect, that's by the grace of Krishna. So Uttara is praying for protection. Pahi, pahi, protect, protect. And faith that Krishna will protect us is one of the basic principles of devotional service. Rakshishititi Vishvasaha. This is one of the 6 principles of Sharanagati, of surrender to Krishna. The faith that Krishna will protect. Rake Krishna Mareke, Mare Krishna Rakeke. Prabhupada would sometimes quote the Bengali saying that if Krishna protects us, then who can kill us? And if Krishna wants to kill you, then who can protect you? Krishna is all-powerful. Therefore, He's fully competent to protect or destroy as He so wishes. However, Krishna is not whimsical. He specifically protects His devotees. Now, what does this protection pertain to? We see that devotees also die, they suffer diseases and various distresses. In fact, the whole Bhagavatam is full of stories of how devotees are suffering in various distressful situations. Of course, the Lord protects them. Maybe most famous narration of the Lord's protection is that of Nrsimhadev protecting Prahlad Maharaj. And then we may say, well, okay, he protected Prahlad, but he came pretty late. On the verge of death so many times. And so many devotees, they also passed away. Even in the presence of Krishna, Abhimanyu, intimately related with this pastime, with Uttara and Parikshit. How is he related with them? Uttara's husband and the father of Parikshit. So he was killed, butchered, in the presence of Krishna. So how can we say that Krishna protects? It seems, well, maybe sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. Arjuna wasn't happy at all. He didn't blame Krishna, but he wasn't. He was very upset that Abhimanyu had been killed. We are assembled here under the protection of Krishna for this festival. As probably most of you know, recently one of the devotees residing in this city died. One of the earliest initiated devotees here, being murdered by her husband, who after killing her killed himself. When I was in Moscow, one devotee who's living there, who's originally from Tatarstan, asked me about this. That if Krishna protects his devotees, then how did he allow this to happen? Our faith may be compromised if we don't understand this. Prabhupada often, several times, told that his German godbrother Sadananda had told him something about the war in Germany. That in those days they only sent the men to fight in the wars, not the women. Now women have equal rights, so they can also go to Iraq and kill the Iraqis. But the women were praying, "Dear God, please send back home our fathers, husbands, brothers and sons." Well, in most cases, it didn't happen. They were killed by the Red Army, atheists. So after this, so many people in Germany, the women or the old men or whoever was left, they stopped believing in God. We prayed for protection to God. He didn't give it. Killed by the atheists, if you're in the eastern part of Germany. And therefore that's proof there's no God. So what does it mean that God protects His devotees? Is it just simply some item of blind faith with no basis? Well, when we make a statement, then we have to analyze it carefully, legistically almost. In the law courts, when a law is made, they analyze the meaning of each word and how it relates to other words, so to get the exact meaning. God protects His devotees. First of all, we should know what God means. God is not our order supplier, that He is obliged to provide all facilities for our sense enjoyment. This is the general misconception of who God is. If people say to us, "I don't believe in God," and we can say that, well, we also don't believe in the God that you don't believe in, but we accept Krishna. The idea that God is someone with great intelligence and great power, so He's very busily fulfilling His only function is to fulfill the sense gratificatory desires of those who demand them to be fulfilled from Him. This is not Krishna. And He protects, but what does that protect mean? Does He protect our opportunities for sense gratification? And we say, well, protect means He should protect you from any hurt or pain or death. But no one will remain in this world forever. The body is always painful, either in life or death. So the devotee prays for protection from Maya. We find in the Srimad Bhagavatam so many prayers. Devotees are praying that wherever I may be born, may I have the association of devotees. Vritrasura prayed like that. He was in his previous life Maharaj Chitraketu. So he was a great devotee. But he, by the curse of Parvati Devi, he apparently, from the material perspective, he fell from his heavenly position and became a demon. So it might seem that Krishna didn't protect him, but he maintained his Krishna consciousness even in that demoniac body. So protection doesn't necessarily mean for the body. It often may be for the body because the devotee has service to do to the Lord in this world. That's why we often find that devotees are saved from very dangerous circumstances. But we shouldn't take it for granted. You can drive at 180 kilometers an hour and it's okay, I'm a devotee. We'll be protected. Don't take Krishna's protection for granted. Don't think that he's obliged to do extra work for you because you're so foolish that you drive too fast. So certainly Krishna protects his devotees by arranging for them various circumstances so they can serve him best and never forget him. Either in one body or another body, Krishna protects his devotees. Then who are his devotees? The Germans who were wanting to demoniacally dominate over other demons, they might have had some sentimental idea of God, but that doesn't qualify them as one who attracts Krishna's special protection. Certainly when they started their campaign of aggression, they didn't think whether or not God wants us to do this. Their marching to war was not like that of Arjuna. Arjuna did it specifically for the sake of pleasing Krishna. Devotee means, specifically Krishna is the protector of the surrendered souls. Prabhupada writes in this purport, the Lord is the only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. So if we don't surrender to Krishna, then we come under the protection of the material energy. And although we may have some vague idea of God, that doesn't mean that one is in the same category as a pure devotee who surrendered to Krishna. In the case of Abhimanyu, well, that was explained to Arjuna, his grieving father, that he had come, of course this is from Mahabharata, he had come from the heavenly planets and he was to go back there after it was already decided before he came that due to some curse he had to come to this world, but then he would, after winning glory, after being in this world only 16 years, he would again go back. 16. Yeah, he was 16. And his glory lives even today. It took so many Maharathis combined to kill him. Who was there? Duryodhana, Karna, Bhishma, Kripacharya, Drona, Kritavarma was there? Shakuni. So, it took a whole team of biggies to kill him. So many questions come up. Kritavarma was a great devotee of Krishna. He always seemed to be acting against Krishna, like Akrura. So, kirtir yasya sajivati, one lives on by his glory. He continues to live. So from the Kshatriya perspective, such a death is glorious. As Krishna pointed out to Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad-gita, that for a Kshatriya to lose his honor is worse than death. So, There are other devotees also who died in unusual or violent circumstances. In Udupi, the place of Madhvacharya, in one of the Pariyai Swamis, or the sannyasis who was engaged in worshipping the Lord in the temple, was killed by a tiger came in from the forest and killed him. Yeah, he's in Pariyai, means that's his term. Literally means term. Recently, our own Tamal Krishna Maharaj passed away in a car accident. So these are devotees who are directly engaged in the service of the Lord in a very substantial way. Why the Lord takes them away in such circumstances, He knows. Various theories may be floated, but when we're discussing higher level devotees, it's better not to speculate too much. Just take it that the Lord knows what He's doing, and that's His wish. Now, in the case of Paurnamasi, who recently passed away here in Naberezhnye, Chelny, she had been, of course, nicely practicing Krishna consciousness for several years. She always used to provide prasadam for distribution at this festival. Unfortunately, she was straying from the straight path, the clear path of Krishna consciousness, as given by Srila Prabhupada following Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. She had become involved in some totally bogus so-called spiritual path called the art of living, which is at the present time one of the most popular pop spiritual paths in India. You don't have that word pop in Russian, it doesn't come through. Yeah. I call it like that because it's like, it's like they have pop music and it's cheap, it's shallow, and shallow people are attracted to it. And the pop stars, they're created by the media. They have no particular qualities of themselves, by themselves. They might be somewhat good looking. They make a whole cult out of them, just out of propaganda. There's a word in English called hype. It means they just by propaganda they create some concept of something which doesn't actually exist. They use it for elections, for advertisements. It's just they mislead foolish people, which is most of the population. It comes from the word hyperbole, which means ridiculous overstatement of a case. Anyway. So, the founder of this art of living nonsense is the present, you could say he's the number one star on the Indian bogus guru circuit at the present time. I saw some magazine and they asked him, what is your aim? So he said, my aim is to put a smile on everyone's face. So even before reading that, I was highly suspicious that he was a rascal number one. But after reading that, I became fully convinced. Someone's fiddling around? No? The sadhu's duty is to teach everyone that this material world is a place of misery. But he's teaching the path of how you can be happy and successful in this world. He's a good showman. I saw in that article also, he said that I was trying for some time, but I wasn't getting much attention. So then I grew a beard, because then people they'd think of me more as a sadhu. So anyway, he's bogus. Anyone who's read Prabhupada's books can, with their mind even slightly open, can understand he's just another cheater. When I got information that Paurnamasi was going to this art of living, I understood that she'd never read Prabhupada's books or heard, she'd never entered the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who's actually heard the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the first thing they can do is that they, by the message of Bhagavatam, they can begin to distinguish reality from illusion. Krishna and Krishna consciousness is so profound and real that anyone who actually takes to Krishna consciousness, they can never be attracted to all these. So many bogus things. I remember myself when I first started reading Prabhupada's books, a feeling of tremendous relief and gratefulness and revelation that at last someone here is real and giving real knowledge instead of all these so many cheaters. So actually she was getting into this path and she was deviating. And one thing we can learn from this is that we shouldn't be so naive as to think that, well, anything that comes from India, that's spiritual. 99.99% of what comes from India is bogus. In the early days of the movement, devotees were so naive, they thought that anyone from India was a pure devotee. Still, so many Indian so-called yogis and gurus are going to the West and taking advantage of people's willingness to be cheated. Certainly India is the place where Krishna appeared, and it is the land of Vedic culture. We have to be intelligent enough to understand and recognize that Vedic culture and learn from that, and not learn from the multiple cheaters. So anyway, somehow or other, Krishna arranged that she's no longer involved with that art of living. And, exactly why it had to be like that, again, Krishna knows. But we should have the faith that because she performed devotional service, that Krishna is looking after her. How he looks after each individual is going to be different in each case. For some, he arranges for some sickness or severe illness. For some, he arranges violent death. And for some devotees, they just pass away very peacefully. Krishna is so kind that he arranges whatever is necessary to help that devotee to progress further. And we should understand it in that way. And not a blade of grass moves without the desire of the Lord. Without the desire, he gives room for the conditioned souls to express themselves. This is a popular term in the modern, undisciplined, avant-garde world. I need to express myself, and you should express yourself. So Krishna gives room for people to express themselves. You can express yourself as human being in one life, a chimpanzee in the next, and a frog and a goat and a panda, and so many different ways you can express yourself. Material energy has a range. It's better to stick to the straightforward and clear path of Krishna consciousness. Stick to the path. Don't invite the material energy to take charge of our lives. Another point is that when we take to Krishna consciousness, then our karmic reactions, they become vanquished. That we may have some serious karmic reaction waiting for us, but by the grace of Krishna, if we take to Krishna consciousness, karmani nirdahati kintu bhakti vacha. They become, such a reaction may be vanquished or minimized. But then if we go outside the shelter of devotional service, then again our karmic reactions can come back on us. That we have to consider also. Yeah, if we go outside the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, then all that which was being held back may come on us. After the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna told Arjuna, you get down from your chariot, move back some distance. So they both got off, and then boom, the whole chariot blew up in flames. Arjuna said, well, what happened? Krishna said that there were so many Agni Astras, the fire, the bombs, and so many explosive weapons were thrown in your chariot. I kept back the force of those weapons. I nullified them. Now they're reacting. So Krishna can hold back the reaction, but then if we turn away from Krishna, then it may be that those reactions will come back on us. But still, one who's performed devotional service doesn't go outside the shelter of Krishna. They will have to suffer for being within the material energy again. But Krishna keeps a special eye on them. So this is how we should understand this. Is there any question about this class? Other questions can be written down and given in the questions and answers session this afternoon.
Может ли мотив предания Кришне, очищение от кармы, последствий кармы, помешать достижению самой высшей цели, чистое преданное служение? Если мы мотивированы с тем, что хотим освободиться от кармы.
If our motive to surrender to Krishna is to get rid of that karma, can it be an obstacle to attain to Krishna?
Certainly.
No.
But at the same time, if we take shelter of Krishna for any reason, then naturally we become attracted to Krishna. Krishna even offers us or tempts us, seduces us. Sarvadhaman parityaja amamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Hey, you want to get rid of all your karmic reactions? Come, I'll give you shelter. Don't worry, I can do it. So in the discussion between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Ramananda Rai suggested that this is the standard of spiritual life, this mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected. This is external. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said this. Yeah, this is not the platform of pure love that you come to Krishna to be, or even that Krishna has to tempt us with being freed from sinful reaction. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he states, "Nama jannani jannanishvare bhavatad bhaktirahaitu kichai." May I, even birth after birth, may I have devotional service to you without any personal motive.
Well, can different approaches to Krishna consciousness cause deviation? For example, one stress the internal spiritual life, other stress external activities like preaching. So can these different approaches cause deviation?
Well, the deviation is the lack of desire to surrender to Krishna and to follow the path given to us by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. That is the deviation. They translated in Russian these books, the Chota books, the mouse stories, Satsrup Maharaj. So in one of those books it says how Chota, he's like an internal devotee. He wants to go away and work on his sadhana. And then there's the other devotee who represents being someone who's really into following rules and regulations, and you have to do your duty, and you can't do this, it's all wrong. But Chota has to find his own way to be a devotee. That's the mouse. The mouse devotee in the story. So I was reading this and I was thinking, well, it sounds quite good. That you have to find your own way. But better than that is we're supposed to have a guru who tells us the way that we're supposed to go. It's not just some kind of eclecticism that you find out by yourself. So, it's true that within the path given by the acharyas, it's not that everyone has to be completely stereotyped. But the overwhelming condition is that we have to follow the path of the acharyas. And that is not, as some claim, just some dry rules and regulations. The acharyas were not simply writers of law books. They're all great devotees of the Lord who wanted us to become great devotees, which is why they gave us the rules and regulations. And representing someone who wants to to engage in active preaching and pushing forward the movement is represented as someone who's just like very shallow and in the mode of passion, very stereotyped in the story was represented like this. And there's no reason why we can't perform activities within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, preaching and organization, and so many things have to be done, and develop our internal, that's what it's meant for, by hearing and chanting. They should go on side by side. That's why ISKCON was set up, to facilitate this. So when you hear people emphasize so much your own way, then it starts reminding me of hippie ideas. You don't know what hippie means, but I do. Hippie means you just do whatever you like, no authority. Generally, it's one godbrother was saying to me, it seems, his observation is that we always tend to consider that there's a strong tendency among devotees to consider ourselves more advanced than we actually are. So anyway, the author of this book, he more or less, without leaving ISKCON, but he more or less disassociated himself from devotees. He lived as a hermit for many years. And he was producing books with very strange pictures that he painted, kind of modern art and very strange kind of pictures. And then eventually the news came out that, he wasn't following the sannyas principle. He'd fallen from that. For all the noble sounding of doing your own way, it would probably be better if you just stuck to the simple way that Prabhupada gave us. What's wrong with Prabhupada's way? Just stick to that and we'll be fine. So we won't lose. It's not that Prabhupada's cheating us. We have to do anything else to develop our internal life. If we're honest, most of us cultivating our internal life means cultivating our lust, greed, anger, envy and illusion, because that's what we got inside, most of us. So better engage in it. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered, that we should engage in activities for spreading the Krishna conscious movement, and we'll get the blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then automatically our Krishna consciousness will develop. Devotees, they're busy, most of them just working to maintain their families. So if you can follow the basic program, if you can chant 16 rounds and read Prabhupada's books for an hour or two every day, that's very good. Most devotees, they seem to be struggling even to do that, and then they're talking about, very high things. If you can keep the TV off, you'll be doing well. If you can keep the TV off, you'll be doing well. If we're actually developing internally, then we'll want to serve Krishna, which is not, it may appear external, but that's the symptom of internal development. So sadhana and various services, they should go on side by side. If we actually follow the sadhana program given to us by Prabhupada, that's several hours every day. It's all meant for internal development. We shouldn't think that we have to do anything else separate or different than what Prabhupada gave us to get the full gifts of the parampara. Hare Krishna. We're finishing here. All glories to Srila. So we have some books to announce. Where are the books? Books. You didn't bring them? Yeah. Bring the books. Srimad Bhagavatam. 10th Canto Part 1 is available in Russian. At last, we've been waiting. Krishna has come. We've been waiting all these years. Now he's come. You can read all about it. The latest news from the spiritual world. Krishna has come. Don't put the books under my feet, please. So here we have Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto, Part 1. By His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela Part 1. Available now. This is the first official edition of the Bhangshidas Babaji book. Available now. And you have the other book? Another offering from Pandit Das about how Ganesh is a devotee of Krishna. In India, many people are very much attracted to worship Ganesh for material prosperity. So one Pandit of the Madhva Sampradaya has given some extracts from Shastra to show that Ganesh is a devotee of Krishna, as of course all the living entities are, all the demigods, Brahma, Rudra, Varnindra, Naruchastra, and Nandita, they all worship Krishna. What's this one? You can say that. What's your next book? Based on Madhva Vijaya's. You could include as an appendix the part from Navadvip Mahatma, where he goes to Navadvip and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears to him. Maybe give a summary of his philosophy. Well, that's another whole big thing, how the Gauriya Vaishnava philosophy. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya philosophy is the basis of the Gauriya Vaishnava. But then if you see that Baladev Vidyabhushan, his offering, it's all based on Madhva. Anyway, it's up to you. You're the author. The philosophy, the Vishishtadvaita things, which Madhva didn't like, to say the least. That's actually closer to the Achinta Veda Veda. Although the basic principles that are given by Madhvacharya Baladev Vidyabhushan is incorporated in this Prameya Ratnavali. Anyway, it's up to you. So, alright, this class is finished. And Hare Krishna.